حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه حمدا يليق بجلال وجهه وبعظيم سلطانه، والصلاة والسلام على نبيه الصادق الأمين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته الصالحين الميامين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اكتبنا منهم آمين. I would like, inshallah, that we interact during this session through your questions and through your also reflections pertaining to what we've been covering, inshallah ta'ala, in particular yesterday and today. And let's begin with your questions. تفضل يا فيصل.
My question is that sometimes it is easier for the nafs to not respond to a situation, and we might feel that this is expressing sabr. We might feel that that we're being patient, but in fact it's out of our own inability to respond to a situation the way that it requires, and we use that almost as an excuse to rectify a situation, or maybe in a relationship with a person that you instead of dealing with that person and rectifying the situation, we just ignore it and we feel that we're showing sabr, but maybe there's something more that we should be doing and we don't do that. How do we know when the nafs is really showing sabr, or if it's just looking for an excuse to not rectify something?
Jazakallah khairan. That's very true. That's indeed very true, and that happens sometimes, and that happens definitely in the course of this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in our beginnings and even in the middle, ila ridhalik, where sometimes, again, as we have given previous examples, when there is a nafs tendency, and then it just happens that I'm doing something along with my nafs that sounds like along with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes, because there was a propensity inside of me anyways. There is a saying in our colloquial Arabic that says sabba walqatha hdura. sabba walqatha hdura, sabab walaqiya hdura, يعني منحدر, سبب ووجد منحدرا. In other words, سبة والقاتها حدورة. سبة meaning a sabab or a cause that found on its way a downhill road. It's just now, the circumstances were such that it came as I really inside liked it. It's not because I wanted to take the road in the beginning, but because it's not because I wanted to take the road after I arrived at the road, but I had that inside of me anyways, and just the road happened to be along with what I desired and wanted. And my dear brother, that is a concealed thing inside of us, and the way to rid oneself of it sometimes certainly is not spontaneous, is by doing these things. We will make sometimes those mistakes in the process of tazkiyah of our nufus, when our nufus are not yet muzakkah. We will do that. Like when we will do a good thing, we will do it this time out of actually riya, out of ostentation, out of hazz for the nafs, out of some benefit that the nafs draws. Yet that external act is a good external act. In a similar way, sometimes we don't do something for the same ailments, because not of our inability. If you are unable, you're safe. If you are unable to do something and you show sabr towards that which one would better do something about it, and that is sabr indeed. But if I'm able to do something. And the same question actually was raised just a moment ago with my brother, Hafidahullah, here. And that if I'm faced with a munkar, something that is, I see somebody in need of help in front of me, and I say, Subhanallah, that's a harm that is befalling that person, that's qada'ullahi wa qadaruh. Then I should show sabr towards that, and I'm at peace. That is wrong. Why? Because I am faced with a situation in which there is an amr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which there is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sabr comes in what in this case? The first type of sabr that you spoke about, الصبر على الطاعة. الصبر على الطاعة. This is a good example for صبر على الطاعة. Then I should do what Allah commands, because if I see someone in need for help, starving and needs to eat food in front of me, or going to fall, is hanging at a cliff and he's going to fall, and I'm the only one there available to give that help, and I have the strength. I'm not the little kid. If he did that, he's going to die with him. Again, am I able to? Then I must, because there's a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there. And then I show sabr in whatever some difficulties I may encounter in providing that help. Because in the presence of an amr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the ulama al-arifun also remind us and teach us, rahimahumullah ta'ala, in the presence of an amr, of a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I must not be acquiescent to what I say and perceive as qada'ullahi wa qadaruh. Qada'ullahi wa qadaruh is hidden from me. I can talk about it in retrospect. Qada'ullahi wa qadaruh is folded from me and from my perception. But the amr is apparent. The amr is explicit. The command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explicit. So I should run in the presence of commands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I should be alert. I should be aware. I should be running to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and show sabr in that obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, something offers to me is offered to me to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I should be like a person who has no limbs, can't move, still, nothing. And then in the matters that are not commands from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not prohibitions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they befall me, about which there is nothing I can do that is consistent with the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I must show at least sabr. I must show at least sabr. Now, so that also we put this in proper perspective. Excuse me, when I see something that I should do, even there is a command about it, to change a munkar. Now this enters the other realm about which sometimes we have spoken in detail, especially in our retreat, in the winter retreat, of the fiqh of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahyu anil munkar. Al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahyu anil munkar is wajib. Wajib kifai, طبعا. It's wajib that is collective wajib, fardu kifaya, under the general circumstances. Unless I'm the only one available at the time when there is a munkar, I'm the only one available, I'm the only one who can and has the power to do something about it. Because min shurut al-amr al-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar is al-qudra ala dhalik. Is that one has the capacity to do that. And min shurut dhalika, of course, the conditions of that, is that my act will not lead to more harm than the harm intended to be removed. And the many other aspects of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar that have been established in our deen and that we shared in that retreat. I advise that we go back to them, inshaAllah ta'ala. This is the balance that we must have. It is neither, sometimes, some people, yes, not denying that they must do something for certain things. They must yas'a, act in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what overwhelms their hal is the shuhud al-rububiyyah, as it is said, is their very deep consciousness, as though they are in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ruling the universe with His qada and qadar. Sometimes, for some people, rahmahullah ta'ala, that's what overwhelms them. It doesn't mean that the knowledge of sa'i and therefore the part of tawheed al-ubudiyyah is not in them. It's just in some occasions and in some moments and in some ahwal that is, if you will, buried underneath. It exists, folded inside the qalb. But what comes in the open of the qalb is that hal of feeling and mushahadatu al-rububiyyah, mushahadatu qada'illahi wa qadarih. And that sometimes overwhelmed to such extent, which is an exalted state of being, to the extent that they are not like some of us out of cowardice or out of laziness or out of some selfish motives, nafsani motives, but out of being overwhelmed, subhanallah, by that divine presence in His qada and qadar. There is no focus on the other one. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you find someone too very focused on sa'i, on doing. And in his qalb, the presence of rububiyyah is very minimal. It's very minimal. That's a state, but it's not like the other one. The presence of rububiyyah is very minimal as long as he or she, in his or her mind, does not deny its existence, that he believes or she believes in that. That's part of tawheed. But sometimes in some circumstances, moved in some hal by the situation itself, that he or she forgets the other part. It's incomplete, it's deficiency. But it is not something for which the person is to be wal-'iyadhu billah kafir or a mubtadi' or a fasiq or so. And that should not continue. One should awaken from that state in order to bring balance between tawheed al-rububiyyah and tawheed al-uluhiyyah. One should always be in tawheed of ubudiyyah, always responding to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always. With energy. Not with acquiescence to what I see, in the name of qada and qadar. But I must do that. I must act. And having nurtured and keep on nurturing tawheed al-rububiyyah inside of me. The iman in qada and qadar inside of me. The tawakkul inside of me. The rida inside of me. The sabr inside of me. So it is neither extreme, my dear brothers and sisters. It's neither extreme, neither the extreme right or the extreme left. Neither in the name of acting, I forget rububiyyah. And in the name of rububiyyah, I forget acting. That is, the balance is required. But the balance will not be attained without mujahadat. Sometimes without focusing on one thing and not focusing on the other until there is some ihkam in this, and then I go to the next, and to the next, and to the next. وهكذا. In one's course towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one has reached every station at the same time. No one has reached every station at the same time. It's stages. One may be busy now with this maqam, with this hal, and therefore the other one is yet to be even begun. It doesn't mean that one is unaware of it or that one is denying it, but one has not reached it. One has not reached the level where the balance is attained. So one is doing one at a time, if you will. Doing maybe 3 at a time, but focusing on one. Those ones are there because they are essential, but there is yet no focus on them. khair. And that's part of the path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a very good question. Jazakallah khair. Any other question? Subhanallah. Fasting is good. And then after we eat, if we don't eat too much, if we eat too much, then we fall asleep. We don't really talk at all, we don't speak. But if we eat just enough, alhamdulillah, to keep our qulub alert, and then we are this quiet, mashallah, that's rahmah. So we should fast often to help us learn about quietness. Because fasting humbles. Fasting humbles the nafs, and the more we do it, the more inshallah it will show even externally. Na'am ya Shaykh. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In one hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, correct me if I'm wrong, that if you would claim to be perfect, I would have destroyed you and created another creation in place of you. Is that a hadith?
Probably what you are alluding at is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the meaning of which, that if the children of Adam were not to sin at all, assume that hypothetical situation, and this is when we talk about the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the raja in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's when this thing becomes instrumental, but not here, not for this discourse of sabr and of rida. But in the context when we speak of tawbah and seeking maghfirah from Allah and the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the raja that we have in Him, this text is often quoted that even if all human beings were to be perfect, in other words, they will not sin. It's not He will destroy them. No, Allah will take them and bring another creation of His who would commit mistakes, who will repent to Him, and He would forgive them. That is emphasizing what? His rahmah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this discourse should not be entertained by us when we are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that it is taken as a green card and a green light for committing more ma'asi. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَال. This maqal is very important in the maqam of a person afraid of his sins. So afraid that it may be too much on him or her, then the maqam of raja, the maqam of rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is called for, and then we are reminded by this attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aina.
Well, I want to say that while we try our best to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we do not aim perfectness.
Yes, we do aim perfectness, not the perfectness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do aim perfectness in what is available and possible. And in the perfectness we aim at is that our qulub in this dunya arrive at destination. That we are cleared from all attachments in our qulub, but that attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's as perfect as we can be as human beings. Each one of us should aim to that. We must aim to that. And I repeat, that text is in the context of emphasizing the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the raja in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the Arabic language, it's low. And low tufidu harfu imtina'in limtina'. It's hypothetical. You will never have human beings, all of them, of this perfection. We must aim at that perfection. That text should never be, that's exactly the mistake that is never should be committed. That text implies we should not aim for perfection. It's exactly what should not happen. It's a hypothetical text that emphasizes, in the context of dhunub, emphasizes the rahmah of Allah Azza wa Jalla, His forgiveness subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if the abd comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in tawbah, even if his dhunub are as momentous as the atoms of this universe, and comes to Allah with sincere true tawbah, Allah will forgive وَلَا يُبَالِي. To the extent that even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had all His creation perfect, He would bring another creation, they would do their best, they would commit mistakes, they would seek His forgiveness, He would forgive them subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said in that context. Aina. Who raised his hand again? I think I saw. No? Yes, you. Oh, here it is. Well, this does not pertain to the subject matter. This is a general question, inshallah. This one. And we will answer it later. That's more of a fiqh issue of mu'amalat. That I have been mentioning a few times, fitan that are coming. Can you please elaborate on that? I don't have anything else to add. Fitan have been there and they will continue to come. Regardless of their nature. Regardless of their nature and what one might know about that. Some of the indications of which are very clear in the Quran and in the Sunnah. And in the observing the Sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation. The laws that govern human conduct. Whether it be political or military or economic or social and so on. And the history of that, and that is tawassum and not necessarily shirafa. That is simply by observing the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His creation and learning from those and drawing the right type of conclusion. That is sometimes called tawassum. And it is not necessarily shirafa or ilham within the qalb, but tawassum, by observing the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all what we should be concerned with is not what type of fitan they are, because they are, as I said, prolific. They could be of different sources. Is that one prepares himself or herself inside of his qalb to feel secure inside his or her qalb with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of what happens outside. That cannot be attained with activism, without tazkiyah of the qulub. That cannot be attained without doing outside, without doing inside. None of that will give most of us the security we need. Some of that, as I said, is mandatory. But if it is done without the presence of our qulub with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without working on detaching ourselves from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through cleansing our jawarih from ma'asi, and through cleansing our hearts from ailments of greed and of anger, and of vanity and of arrogance and of violent want, and so on. If we don't do that, we will never feel secure. If we don't fill up our qulub with dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we don't learn sabr, if we don't learn shukr, if we don't learn tawakkul, if we don't learn rida, that is the emphasis. The emphasis is not what type of fitan and at what time they arrive. We are always in fitan. Bala leaves no one in general, and especially those who are nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is just like a similar situation when a person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says, "Mata as-sa'ah?" When is the hour, Ya Rasulullah? He spoke to them a lot about it, And then that's what the one picked. One of them focused on that. When is the hour? Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was his reply to him? You all know. ماذا أعددت لها? What have you prepared for it? My dear brothers and sisters, حفظكم الله. And at what point are we required to perform hijrah? Ya Riyadh, what would you say? Go ahead. Aina. But also, when are we required to perform that hijrah? What would you say, Mustafa? What did you say, Abdul Rahman? Pardon? What do you mean? Aina. When shall we perform hijrah? We must be always in hijrah. We must be always in hijrah. Always in hijrah. Always in hijrah. You know what I mean? Your qalb must always be in hijrah. Wherever you are. If the qalb is in hijrah, the body doesn't have to be in hijrah. We sometimes undertake the physical hijrah to focus our qalb on the internal hijrah. المهاجر من هاجر السيئات. There are many meanings of the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The true muhajir is the person who has performed hijrah away from sinning against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should be always in hijrah. The hijrah of our qalb away from the nafs, its shahwa and its hawa. The hijrah of our qalb away from the khalq. That's the hijrah. We must always be in hijrah. Always be in hijrah, my dear brothers and sisters. In that sense. A sister told me this dua. اللهم اجعلني عبد إحسان ولا تجعلني عبد امتحان. Please comment on this dua. Whatever the source of this dua is. اللهم اجعلني عبد إحسان ولا تجعلني عبد امتحان. آمين يا رب. آمين يا رب. آمين يا رب. What does this mean? Ya Allah, let me be a abd living in your ihsan, not a abd living through your imtihan. That's what it means. In other words, عافيتك هي أوسع لي. عافيتك هي أوسع لي. طبعا إن لم يكن بك علي غضب فلا أبالي، ولكن عافيتك هي أوسع لي. That's what it is implying. اللهم اجعلني عبد إحسان. In other words, Ya Allah, let me be a abd living through your bounties, your ihsan, your forgiveness, your rahmah, your pardon, your afu, your generosity, your kindness. And let me not be a abd that lives through your imtihan, through your trials, through your tests, because I'm a abd that is faqir, I'm a abd that is weak. Ya Rabbi, I can't bear your tests. I'm afraid I fail. I'm afraid I fail each test you set upon me. I'm not that abd. And even those ibad, rahimahumullah ta'ala, with the strength that Allah gave them, this is what they say. Also in their dua. But when the bala comes, they even enjoy it. But they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this. نسأل الله العافية ولكن عافيتك هي أوسع لي. In that beautiful dua, remember that in other words, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was befallen by those calamities, especially after returning from Ta'if, and this dua is authenticated by some ulama, and some ulama say not, but it's a most beautiful dua, that it is related that part of that, as you know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, all of this that has happened to him, subhanallah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those more than 10 days in Ta'if, and before, and then that beautiful dua, and then he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إن لم يكن بك علي غضب فلا أبالي. إن لم يكن بك علي غضب فلا أبالي ولكن عافيتك هي أوسع لي. أعوذ بنور وجهك الذي أضاءت له السماوات وأشرقت له الظلمات وصلح عليه أمر الدنيا والآخرة من أن ينزل علي غضبك أو يحل بي سخطك. لك العتبى حتى ترضى ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. That's عبد. That's عبد. الله أكبر. إن لم يكن بك علي غضب فلا أبالي. يا Allah, if you are not angry at me. In other words, this bala is not adhab. And who is speaking? Rasulullah. Certainly part of that teaching is ummah. إن لم يكن بك علي غضب فلا أبالي. If you're not angry at me, Allah, I do not mind. In other words, his concern is not what they did to him and the pain. No pain for that at all. His all concern is this rida from Allah or not? In anything. إن لم يكن بك علي غضب فلا أبالي. Whatever befalls me of any ordeal, all that I'm concerned about and should be inshallah, is have I disobeyed Allah? That's all I should be caring about. Have I disobeyed Allah? Have I disobeyed Allah? Is Allah angry with me? Otherwise, he says, فلا أبالي. I do not mind. And yet he says, صلى الله عليه وسلم, ولكن yet عافيتك هي أوسع لي. Your عافية, O Allah, is more spacious for me, more accommodating for me, more desirable, in other words, in this polite, subhanallah, beautiful, eloquent language. هي أوسع لي. عافيتك هي أوسع. Your عافية, that is security from you. Security from you inside of me is أوسع لي. That you pardon me, that you don't punish me, that you don't test me, that you don't subject me to tribulations, that you don't test my قلب. ولكن عافيتك هي أوسع لي. And then the remaining dua, which is subhanallah very, very, very beautiful, until it says ولك العتبى حتى ترضى. ولك العتبى حتى ترضى. الاستعتاب, لك العتبى حتى ترضى. الاستعتاب meaning, in other words, basically means, in essence, I shall continue knocking at your door and begging of you. استعتاب. لك العتبى يعني لك العتبى علي أنا أعاتب نفسي. لك العتبى, in other words, I shall continue to knock at your door, to beg of you continuously, incessantly, never leaving, regardless of what's happening, until حتى ترضى, until there is rida from you for me, until you are pleased with me, until you are pleased with me. لك العتبى حتى ترضى ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. That statement of taslim, that statement of surrender, that statement of complete Subhanallah, istitrah, complete laying down oneself, helpless and effortless in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The statement of La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. In other words, I have no strength, I have no might, I have no authority, I have no ability, I have no qualities by which I come to you except by you. La hawla wa la quwwata illa bik. My way to you, my obedience of you is not by me and by my means or anything else. It's by you. And that's a statement of, it's a dua in a sense. It's an invocation when you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Sometimes we say it like we say Insha'Allah. Sometimes we say Insha'Allah when we don't want to do something, Astaghfirullah. Or when it is I really don't know. Meaning, most likely I won't come. Or when we say A'udhu Billah, it's like a curse. Say A'udhu Billah, it's like a curse. Just a statement of anger. A'udhu Billah. Which is actually a dua, a statement of seeking shelter behind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it's saying, I can't, Ya Allah, I'm alone, I'm helpless. Hide me from shaitan. It's too much for me, Ya Allah. A'udhu Billah. I seek iyaz. I seek, in other words, shelter from shaitan with Allah. Seek refuge. As I'm hiding and I'm saying, I can't, Ya Allah, do it by myself. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is the statement of istislam if it is ala al-haqiqah. If it is really interiorized, it is the statement of tawakkul. The statement of tawakkul. The statement of full surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's a statement in which I am acknowledging fully and fully living that I have no means. And I have no reliance. And I have no means by which to live in this life and by which to walk to you and by which to face the ordeals and the calamities and the difficulties except by you and through you, Ya Allah. It is the most healing dhikr. It is the most healing dhikr and of the most healing dhikr for the qalb that is not at peace if it is properly interiorized. La ilaha illa ant. It's also like La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La ilaha illa ant subsumes all the stations, all the maqamat. La ilaha illa ant. There is no ilah that I see, that I connect myself, that I attach myself to except you. In hubb, in love, in fear, in desire, in help, in giving. Only you, Ya Allah. اللهم اجعلني عبد إحسان ولا تجعلني عبد امتحان. It's beautiful, mashallah, it's a beautiful dua. Yes, sister. La ilaha illallah. Alaikum assalam. I'm sorry? Counseling. For Bishr al-Hafi it is. For Uwais al-Qarani it is. For al-Jaylani rahimahullah ta'ala it is. For us it is not. For us it is not. We seek dawa. We seek istishfa. We go to doctors who have the expertise to help us. When we have a sickness, that is the sabab that we undertake in order that we seek healing. But as we have many times or in this retreat again established and emphasized, that my seeking of that help must not be where my heart lies. But guess what? That's what happens most of the time to us. Doctor, you saved my life. I am indebted to you for the rest of my life. And the guy wouldn't have even touched you if you didn't have any insurance and you didn't pay tens of thousands of dollars. He wouldn't have even begun the surgery, most of them. That's shirk. That's shirk. Imagine this. This is like an extreme way to show that. But imagine what we sometimes do of less extreme attachments to the means rather than to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one. And when one goes to, because you mentioned psychiatrists and psychologists, that's not an exact science like medicine or like physics or like mathematics that's a very speculative science. That first of all depends on the answer to the question, who is a human being? What is a human being doing here? You learned that in Psych 101, I suppose, all of you who studied Psychology 101, you know that that's what is taught. That there are as many psychologies, right? Anyone took Psych 101? Raise your hand. You remember this or not? You don't remember? Okay. That's the first thing you learn. That there are as many psychologies as there are answers to the question, what is a human being? What is he doing here? What is the nature of illness? What is the nature of the mind? What is the nature of society? All of that. And there are psychologies. And sometimes in my own observation, Allah Ta'ala Alam, for an Allah-fearing Muslim, in general, it's better not to do that. When it comes to those speculative psychiatrists and psychologists. And unless there is one who is fully aware of, because he's dealing with your psyche. What does he know about your psyche? What does he know about nafs and when he is nafs? Yeah. What does a nafs ammara knows about another nafs ammara and how to heal a nafs in distress? But sometimes, because ourselves, of course, we are in a different state, that we find that, I guess, in a sense, helping, because it's in a sense least evil, or compared to other evils. So when it comes to that, it's many times not even a working type of healing. It's not a good sabab, in other words. We have to be cautious and careful about that. And not only I am saying this, I know there are even groups of scholars that are non-Muslims, many of whom Christians, and others who even publish very famous magazines about the ills of psychiatry and the phony approaches and what moves and motivates some of that practice, marketing the industries and the pharmaceuticals, and all of that is involved in that business, and sometimes some of the healing approaches that they use, ila ghari dhalik. And sometimes I have, ya'lamullah, I have observed that if those individuals will continue to go to see psychologists, that they will even be worse, and the situation will be most terrible. And in some instances, indeed it was, and to the extent that that person who has been taken to psychologists, ila ghari dhalik, for a problem that didn't have to be that way, it's so accentuated that ultimately it was a child, a son, killed both his parents. Non-Muslim. They didn't have to do that. As the story was unfolding, I knew something like that would happen. All what it did for that young mind and heart, it only legitimized, which they don't acknowledge, legitimized to him or to her what they were doing. And their feelings that were wrong and not as evil in the beginning. Simply laziness and boredom and some violence, ila ghari dhalik. And then the way the psychologists approach these things sometimes, they have said it, I've heard many of them say it and write it. It is, we're not concerned whether the person speaks the truth or not, it doesn't matter. even to the extent, in some instances, some court cases, where their allegations that their parents had committed incense against them, even if those allegations were untrue, he said, I don't care. I don't care, as long as he believes it. Yes. I work with what he believes or she believes inside. That's what I deal with. It doesn't matter whether he's telling me the truth or not. Even if I know. يعني some تخليط وهوس that is not worth the name of science. والله تعالى أعلم. خير. حفظكم الله جزاكم الله تعالى خيرا. نكتفي بهذا القدر إن شاء الله، ونسأل الله عز وجل العلي القدير العلي الحكيم أن يغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا، وأن يطهر قلوبنا، وأن ينورها بالعلم والإيمان واليقين والصبر والرضا سبحانه وتعالى. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. By the way, I forgot, I was reminded the text, the contents of which I forgot, and I get quite sometimes confused with Diya and Nur. And that's from my recollection, it is yes indeed what was, alhamdulillah, rectified by the sister, is that Salatu Nur wa Sabr Diya wa Sadaqatu Burhan, as came in the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Salah is Nur, and Sabr is Diya, and Sadaqa is Burhan, is proof. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.